Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the Blessed One, and the fully enlightened one. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Once again, I would like to welcome you to today's Sutta discussion class. Today, we selected a discourse from Majjhima Nikaya. It is Saccavibhanga Sutta, the analysis of the truth. The English translation says that the truth is being analyzed in this discourse. Saccavibhanga Sutta. This is the sutta that the Buddha explained some sort of his main discovery called Four Noble Truth. But when we read the sutta, we can see that it is not the Buddha explain the each and every factor of the discourse. The Venerable Sariputta, one of the great chief disciples of the Buddha, explained the discourse. So we are going to cover the whole discourse today in this 1 hour class. So let's understand the significant Dhamma factors of the discourse. Before I go into the details of the discourse, I would like to spend some time discussing about the importance of the sutta among many discourses in Majjhima Nikaya. As we all know, there are 152 discourses in Majjhima Nikaya. So this is the 141 discourse. There are a particular section called Vibhanga. It means analysis. We have analysis of each Dhamma facts in these discourses. So the Vibhanga Sutta, especially about truth, is speaking about the Four Noble Truth and the Noble Eightfold Path. So here I have mentioned a couple of important things of the discourse. The Buddha mentioned about his first discourse at the deer park of Isipatana twice. And when Sariputta, of course, mentioned about the first discourse twice in this discourse. This is one of the discourses that the Buddha himself said that I started my ministry of Sangha along with the Dhamma at the Isipatana deer park near Varanasi by telling the first discourse, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So he mentioned it twice in this Saccavibhanga discourse. And Venerable Sariputta also mentioned that the Buddha delivered the Dhammacakkappavattana as his first discourse. So that is one of the significant things. Why do I mention that? Because in the Tripitaka, we do not find the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta at the very beginning of the books. It is somewhere in the middle of Samyutta Nikaya, the connected discourses of the Buddha. So sometimes people ask the question, why the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the first discourse of the Buddha, is recorded somewhere in the middle of the section. Here Buddha mentioned that my first discourse was to 5 monks, and it is the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Discussion about the Four Noble Truth as the Buddha's greatest discovery. Of course, that is the main and the central teachings of the Buddha. You may be interested on different things in Buddha's teaching. Some people like the Girimananda Sutta because it talks about the perception that people always should have. Sometimes you like Karanimetta Sutta because you are always reciting in it, and that is one of the familiar discourses for many people. Sometimes people like different discourses, but the very thing that the Buddha emphasized as the main teaching, main discovery is the Four Noble Truths. Any discourse, any concept you like, it doesn't matter, but the central teaching that all the subtopics, concepts connect to the Four Noble Truths. So Buddhas appear into this world to explain, to set forth the Four Noble Truths. So that is the main discovery of the Buddha, and it is elaborated in this discourse with details. We can find only a couple of discourses like this, such as Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Mahatibadopama Sutta, some discourses like that. Buddha explain, or the venerable monks explain the Four Noble Truths in details. So Saccavibhanga Sutta is therefore a very important discourse. In this sutta, Buddha did not tell much about the Dhamma. He mentioned that I explained the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path that cannot be explained by anybody else in this world except the Buddha for the first time to 5 monks, and then he was going to praise Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana.
He was going to try to do what?
He was admiring, he was praising Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana. He had some reasons to do that, because Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana were the chief disciples. There were only two chief disciples for the Buddha, that is Moggallana and Sariputta. Between these two, Sariputta was very significant in many ways. One reason is that Venerable Sariputta was the chief disciple of for many things, especially for wisdom. He is the foremost, very wise disciple of the Buddha. He was second only to the Buddha, and he helped so many monks and nuns and lay people, and it is incomparable for any other monks. So for the Buddha, Venerable Sariputta is so important, and Venerable Moggallana also. Here, after setting the stage for monks to think about the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path, Buddha admired both chief disciples. So this discourse, as I said, is one of the discourses or sermons uttered by Venerable Sariputta. There are other discourses. Sometimes we took some discourses into discussion, so this is one of them. We are going to understand the analysis of the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path in this sermon, and let's see how it goes. So this is Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana in the screen. So they were always helping the Buddha and the fourfold disciples to get into enlightenment. Now I would like to tell you some information about the chief disciples, because it is always important to know, especially when we discuss the Saccavibhanga Sutta. As you know, there are chief disciples of the Buddha. Venerable Sariputta was the foremost of wisdom, when Venerable Moggallana was the foremost of psychic powers. So they are the most skillful disciples of these two sections, wisdom and psychic power. Again, Venerable Sariputta is like a mother who brings forth stream winners. This is exact words of the Buddha. So Venerable Sariputta was compared to the mother of the order because he helped monks, young monks, elderly monks, and monks in different ages, just like a mother. Mothers are always tender and so sensitive. They are so loving to children. So Venerable Sariputta, without any arrogant being, because of his position, helped all the monks. Let me give an example. Sometime he went with the Buddha long distance, and many monks would like to go with the Buddha and Venerable Sariputta when they march to distant places for Dhamma propagation. Venerable Sariputta could have gone side by side with the Buddha with all the facilities, support from the other monks. But he didn't do that. He always went behind all the monks. Why? He wanted to took care of monks who are sick, and the young monks and elderly monks. So he was going behind everyone, taking care of all these monks. Sometime he came to the monastery so late because of this practice. One day he didn't have a place to sleep at night, so whole night he was sitting under a tree. There was a small hut prepared under a tree, so he was staying in that. So Buddha woke up around 4 and noticed that Venerable Sariputta was staying whole night under that tree covered by some clothes. Next day, Buddha gathered everybody in the monastery and admired the humble quality of Venerable Sariputta very much. He could have stayed in the luxurious room at the monastery, the best room at the monastery, because he is one of the chief disciples. But this incident taught us that Venerable Sariputta was so humble, so wise. He did not want any facility. He wanted to others to be happy and relaxed. So this is one of the greatest quality of Venerable Sariputta. That's why Buddha compared Venerable Sariputta to a mother. When Moggallana is like a wet nurse who nurtures fellow monks right up to the arhathood. So when we talk about both Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana, Buddha mentioned here this comparison. Venerable Sariputta was to a mother, and Venerable Moggallana is to a wet nurse. Why this comparison is made by the Buddha? Venerable Sariputta, when he came across a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni or lay person who is still unenlightened, he explained the Dhamma for the persons to attain only to extreme winning position, Sotapanna. Why? The Dhamma itself witnesses that if one attains to extreme winning position, that very person knows how to gain the other levels of enlightenment. Because you have crossed over the mundane quality of your life into supramundane, so you are safe in terms of getting into reborning in unhappy places. So it's a perfect and level of your mind which never turn into unwholesomeness. So Venerable Sariputta helped monks and nuns, lay people to get into Sotapanna level. Then everybody, all these people who attend to know how to get into Sakadagami, Anagami, or Arha. But Venerable Moggallana's quality is different from Venerable Sariputta. Venerable Moggallana support his disciples or lay people or monks and nuns until those people attain to full enlightenment. Therefore, the literature says that Venerable Moggallana helped a lot many people, many monks than Venerable Moggallana. Venerable Sariputta helped many more than Venerable Moggallana, because Moggallana keeps students until they attain to enlightenment, while Venerable Sariputta explained the Dhamma for students and other people to attain the first level of enlightenment. So that's the difference. The basic duties of the two chief disciples are to help the Buddha consolidate the Dhamma, thereby making it a vehicle of spiritual transformation and deliverance of beings. So that's one of the, to help the Buddha consolidate the Dhamma, thereby making it a vehicle of spiritual transformation and deliverance of being. So it means that Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana helped the Buddha to disseminate the Dhamma. Buddha himself could not do that. Actually, many people in that society, especially some sects who were against Buddha and Buddha's disciples, blame Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana than the Buddha, because they were working so hard to teach the Dhamma to lay people. That's why some misguided religious leaders gave bribery to a group of robbers and killed Venerable Moggallana. Because Venerable Moggallana had psychic powers that those religious people didn't have. So many people attracted by that psychic power. So Venerable Moggallana sometime went to divine world and explained all these divine stories in human world, and people like it. People did give dana to monks, and they were not doing any wrong thing after that. Everybody would like to go to heaven after that. Then he sometime went to ghost realm, apaya, we call it Petaloka, the ghost realm, and related those stories among people. So people stop doing bad things, stop doing all these negative things. That is a big blow to the other sect of the society. So they thought that if these monks continued telling of all these stories, we are not going to get even food. Not necessarily talk about the monasteries and other luxurious things. So they asked a gang of robbers to kill Venerable Moggallana. So that's what happened. So this shows that Venerable Moggallana and Venerable Sariputta were successfully, creatively spreading the words of the Buddha.
So did they actually kill him?
Yeah. Venerable Moggallana was in a cave, and those people who got money from the religious group came to the cave, and Venerable Moggallana saw people are coming by his psychic mind. Then he, using his psychic power, escaped from. He did this escape thrice, but again these people came. Then Venerable Moggallana noticed that I had done something wrong in the past, killing my own mother and father. That's why this bad thing is coming to my life. So, respecting to the karma, he did not, escape from his koti. So, in my view, he could have escaped from, but Arahants do not have any desire to exist. So when we talk about the second noble truth, we know that they have completely destroyed the three types of craving called desire for sensual pleasures, desire for existence, and desire for non-existence. Desire for existence is completely cut off by the Arahant. Therefore, the Arahant does not want to live if there is something happen like Venerable Moggallana's life. So he saw that in many lifetime ago, he killed his own mother and father, and he suffered a lot for that great misdeed. Even at the last birth, as one of the chief disciple of the Buddha, the bad karma, the residue of bad karma was there. So the robbers hit him so hard with wood and weapons they brought. It is said that the bone in his body broke into the size of the rice. He didn't die at this place because of his mind power. He was able to make his body as it is and went to the Buddha with his psychic power and asked forgiveness from the Buddha to pass away, parinirvana. Buddha gave the permission. It is a custom that not all of course, almost all the Arahants got the permission from the Buddha to attain to final liberation. So Venerable Moggallana also went there. That's the story. So the second duty of the two great chief disciples is to serve as models for the other monks to emulate and to supervise their training. So if you look at the life story of Venerable Sariputta and Moggallana, you are amazed to see how these two disciples started their training as monks, novice monks, and got into enlightenment in extraordinary ways, and he helped them throughout their life, second only to the Buddha. They had extraordinary qualities. I have told you some stories of Venerable Sariputta some time ago. Today I am not going to tell any of those because we need to cover the discourse. You may read some stories. They are very good. So they were very good in helping the monks with the advice, especially about meditation. So the third duty of these two is to assist in the administration of the Sangha, particularly when the Buddha is in retreat or away on urgent missions. So Buddha had the 100% confidence on Venerable Sariputta, especially in explaining the deep teaching. It is said in the literature that Buddha explained all the Abhidhamma to Venerable Sariputta. And Venerable Sariputta's disciples memorized and uh, kept them all these deep Dhamma from generations to generations. Because Abhidhamma is the analytical part of the Buddha's teaching, they are not uh, easy to understood by normal average scholars because they are very deep. So we are here understanding the duties of the chief disciples because Venerable Sariputta is one of them and he is the one who delivered this beautiful discourse. So we go into the discourse now. Let me read the discourse because it is very important. Thus I have heard. On one occasion the Blessed One was living at Veneras in the deer park at Isipatana. There he addressed the bhikkhus thus, Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Buddha said this. So this happened at the deer park at Isipatana in Banaras. At Banaras, bhikkhus in the deer park at Isipatana, the Tathagata, accomplished and fully enlightened, set rolling the matchless wheel of the Dhamma, which cannot be stopped by any recluse or any Brahmin or God or Mara or Brahma, anyone in the world. That is, the announcing, teaching, describing, establishing, revealing, expounding and exhibiting of the Four Noble Truths. So, this is the introduction to the discourse. I have given you some of them here. It is said that the peerless wheel of truth called Dhammachakra, that cannot be stopped by anyone mentioned here. It here mentioned all type of living beings in this universe, such as the Devas, Brahmas, Mara, the evil one, and anyone in this world cannot stop rolling this wheel of Dhamma. Why? It is rolled by the self-enlightened Buddha. Buddhas appear in this world after a long time with so much hard work as the Bodhisattva, and such a person comes to this world only to do this. He is beyond everyone in the universe. Therefore, his power is enormous and incomparable to anyone in this universe. Therefore, whatever he said cannot be matched to anything in this universe and cannot be stopped by anyone. So what he explained here for the first time after his attainment is the Four Noble Truths. It is said by the Tathagata, the worthy one, the fully self-awakened one, that is the proclaiming, teaching, defining, establishing, revealing, expounding, analyzing and clarifying of the Four Noble Truths. So Buddha said in the discourse that I, for the first time, explain, there are some words, proclaim, teach, define, establish, reveal, expound, analyze, clarify the Four Noble Truths. So at the Isipatana, Buddha did all of these things. He first proclaimed. What do you mean by proclaim? You just mention what you want initially. So Buddha said that I understood the Four Noble Truths. What are the Four Noble Truths? Then he teach the noble truth of suffering, the noble truth of arising of suffering, and so forth. That's called teaching. Defining. Now you define what is suffering, what is arising of suffering, what is cessation of suffering. So now he is defining. Then establish. So there would be someone listen to the discourse. So the Buddha established the teaching of the Four Noble Truths on minds of those listeners. That's called establishing. Revealing. Now Buddha led the listeners to reveal the Four Noble Truths, true and accurate from their experience. Expounding now, Buddha himself and also the listeners expounded from their own experience the accuracy of the Four Noble Truths. In other words, the listeners would be able to expound and explain the Four Noble Truths from their own experience. Then analyzing and clarifying. So why these Four Noble Truths are there, and what happened to the listeners or practitioners when they understand the Four Noble Truths. So would they explain every possible information, factors, combining them to the life experience. So that is what did the Buddha do at the deer park. So here in this discourse, Buddha said that I did that at the deer park as my first sermon. So now we have the Four Noble Truths. Friends, when we look at the Four Noble Truths, we know kind of sense always come to us. Oh, I know that. I'm familiar with that. It is only four truths that I memorized at my school, at the Dhamma school. I know, but there are only four truths. It's so simple to memorize, but we are still not fully comprehending these four truths. If you really understand these Four Noble Truths into highest extent, you cannot remain average. You must be a great disciple of the Buddha. You must be an arahant. Therefore, do not come to conclusion that I know the Four Noble Truths. Of course, you may know about it theoretically with some information, but it's not the whole thing we should know. We have to experience the Four Noble Truths from the meditative mind. So the Four Noble Truths are the dukkha, samudaya, nirodha magga, the truth of suffering, the truth of origin of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, the truth of the path leading to the end of suffering. So, before we go into discourse in details, let's have a discussion. What is the first noble truth? What kind of things we discuss in the first noble truth? It is said that dukkha, right? Why does a Buddha appear to tell this to us? We know that, right? Why? What else we have to understand from the support of a Buddha?
But it doesn't end there.
Yeah, actually, yes. Without a Buddha, we cannot know how long this suffering goes. We know that this suffering is really there in this lifetime. Without a Buddha, we could know that it is continuing from previous life to this life and this life to next if we didn't do anything. Yeah, good answer. We know suffering is in our life from a general sense, sickness, old age, not getting what we want, and all these are suffering. And as a grown person, we all know that they are suffering. We have physical suffering, mental suffering, suffering of suffering comes from natural disasters, and so many things are there. for us to understand from a general sense. You do not need to go to school or colleges, do degree. We don't do, we need to complete all these academic studies to understand suffering in a general sense. But without the support of the Buddha, we cannot understand the suffering of sensual pleasures. We are not going to realize it. Even with feeble, old senses, the average human beings would like to enjoy their sensual pleasures. So it is the Buddha who delivered it with experience, and people still do not believe the Buddha. If not, Buddha showed the beautiful side of our mind with great qualities. For example, Buddha came out of his meditation as the self-enlightened Buddha, and he said to the 5 monks that I found the noble path. So these are the noble truth I realized, starting from suffering. So 5 group of monks knew that old age is suffering, sicknesses are suffering, and all these physical and mental are suffering. But Buddha said that I attained to this level, that level, with this and that. Then only the 5 monks were slowly accepting the Buddha's word that he realized the Four Noble Truths. So if I get back to the question I asked, what is suffering and how we can understand suffering, usually people do not realize that there is a mental suffering in a very subtle ways called 5 aggregates of clinging. The perception, feelings, mental state that gives sensual pleasures technically gives suffering to people. So it is the Buddha who said that. Suppose we study and find better jobs, we get married and have children, we build houses, mansions, we buy luxurious things, we go wherever we want to go, and people don't say that in this type of life there is a suffering. Do you? Sometimes people say that we are accomplished, right? Winning a gold medal in Olympic, winning a game and having a lottery won. People think that they are accomplishment. But according to the reality of this life, the happiness out of all these gaining could be short, temporary. So that's why the suffering of the truth of suffering is important. It is the Buddha who explained that to us. So if we go into details of the second and third and fourth, of course we find the marvelous teaching of the Buddha. We need to discover it. We need to jump into the noble truth from our own experience and analyze it. So this analysis of the truth in this special sermon, Buddha invite us to dive into the teaching through our own experience. If you look at the discourse, you do not find any interesting thing there. They are all facts. He explained this is the first truth, this is the second truth, this is the third and fourth. In the first one we have these subcategories, in the third, in the second, in the fourth. That's all this sermon explained. But we need to apply them into our own experience or compare them with our own experience. Then only we find the beauty of the truth. Let's go into the first noble truth. The noble truth of suffering. The noble truth of arising. I mean, there is a typo there. In that first truth, we have this section. Birth is suffering. The decay is suffering. The disease is suffering. The death is suffering. To be associated with the unpleasant is suffering. To be separated from the pleasant is suffering. Not getting what one wants is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, physical pain, mental pain, despair are suffering. In short, the 5 aggregates of clinging are suffering. I think you are familiar with these. However, let's go into details. Who says that birth is suffering? The mother and the father are overjoyed.
No, the mother suffers, the baby suffers.
But she's smiling.
No, not when she's
Yeah, of course, at the delivery she is not smiling, but they are waiting and waiting and
the baby also suffers.
Yeah. But have you told any new mother with that the birth of your child is suffering?
No.
Suppose your friend has a new baby girl or boy, and you went to see them, and oh, what a suffering is this? Do you tell it? No. It is considered really bad, right?
Because in the end, I think it's so little time that it's almost irrelevant.
Yeah. That is where I need to extend the discussion further, because we have 2 kinds of truth. The first one is conventional truth. The second one is absolute truth. According to the first one, we should appreciate birth of a child. We should appreciate getting married couples and also achievements, and we should appreciate people. We should do all kind of things according to the convention. That's called conventional truth. We need it. Without that, you may not hear today, right? So the temple, the monks, mother, father, husband, wife, they are all conventions. We need to have it. We need to respect it. Even the Buddha said, I am the Buddha, your Venerable Sariputta, and I met so and so. This is convention. By conventional truth, birth is not a suffering. It is a gift. It is because of luck. It is because of merits. Even with the absolute way, we can say that the birth of the Buddha is good for the world. Birth of a child who is genius, who is lucky, healthy, is a blessing to the family, right? So, however, due to birth, this is where the birth is suffering. Due to birth, you experience sicknesses, old age, death, and all kind of suffering follows by that. If you are not reborning again, you are not going to die, and rest of the suffering never follows. That's why the birth is suffering. Birth as a deity, birth as the head of divine world, birth as the head of Brahma world, birth into any inferior existence could result you suffering. That's why the birth is suffering. So, what is decay? Before that, I need to go back and read the part I quoted there from the discourse. Being born, becoming, descending into a womb, arising, generating, manifesting of the aggregates, obtaining the sense base of various beings in various group of beings here and there. That's called the birth. How, the birth of a human being is happening through the womb. Father and mother come together and make the opportunity for a new beings to get into the womb with consciousness. And sometimes humans live only in the womb. They die in the womb. The consciousness come to the fertility of the mother and live there only couple of months. So they reborn in the womb as human beings and die before they come out of the womb. Sometimes humans die after birth, while birth, sometimes different ways death happens. So this is one birth that we talk about under birth. And birth as a divine being is also a suffering. Why? Because in divine world there is sicknesses, craving, greed, hatred. So they are going to die. The death of divine beings are not like human beings. They disappear. Before disappearance from divine existence, they got different signs of their bodies. They don't like it. Kind of pain, mental pain, psychological changes takes place in their mind. So no need to talk about the birth into suffering like ghost and animals and hell and so forth. They are of course utterly in suffering throughout their life, not only in the birth time. So the birth is something like that according to Buddha's teaching. That's what he explained in the First Noble Truth. Decay, aging, decaying, broken teeth, grey hair, wrinkled skin, and the dwindling away of one's years, the weaknesses of the sense faculties in various beings, in various group of beings here and there. That's called decay. What is death? Falling away, passing away, breaking off, disappearance, death, dying, one's time, being up, completion of one's time, breaking off of the aggregates, discarding of the body, uprooting of the life's faculty in various beings, in various group of beings here and now. So death is not only here the human death, death of all living beings. So I just want you to focus on the suffering in us, taking these only the birth, decay and death. That's what we discussed yet. So if we think about these concepts, comparing ourselves, we have already are born to this life. Because of birth, we experience decay. We didn't die yet, right? No? But we have the momentary death. Decay is there. So some of our organs, internal organs, are slowly dying. The kidneys, could be the brain, could be eyes, the faculty of hearing. Many organs, many important organs are dying because of the number of years we have been living. So we need to get into that. And when we know that some of the faculties die slowly, what what kind of thoughts we should have is that I should clean my mind from impure thoughts. The very purpose of understanding the analysis of the truth is to encourage ourselves into morality, concentration, and wisdom. We haven't discussed everything in the discourse, but the main message of the discourse is to know the truth as the said by the Buddha and see it from our own experience. Let's take the Four Noble Truths again: the suffering, the arising of suffering, and the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. When we think of these four lines, what comes to us? What comes to us is that suffering is there. So Buddha has talked about the suffering in this life. Is it really suffering this life? So you can question yourself. It is, right? You cannot come out of without clothes, without a couple of layers of clothes these days. And you cannot live, let's say, 10 hours without food. You cannot have the perfect 100% control of your body now. And we would say that this is my life, but how many of us have 100% freedom in this life? We are connected to the world, right? You are governed by so many forces, psychological, physical, material, whatever names we could use, but we are governed by many things. If we look at closely about our life, we are not independent, we are interdependent, right? So many things should be there to make us, going forward. If one collapse, everything collapse. So we can find suffering in us. Insecurity feeling is there always. So we had 3 days without electricity, right? In some areas. Everything was out of our wishes. Let's say how about if our outage happen in our body? This is a kind of power station. The brain and the heart and the other organs come function because of the breathing and the food, nutriments. Everything should be in proper order in order for the persons to stand up, wake up, and talk and do things. If one collapse, everything will be upset. If you do not have breathing happens. So this is how this body function, and we could see the physical suffering. However, this physical suffering could be superseded or overcome by the mental happiness, understanding. So the very purpose of this special Saccavibhanga Sutta is to make people ready with the understanding that this life has this continuous process of suffering. But if you are going to understand it, you would be psychologically okay. Buddha could not stop decay of the body, old age of the body. At the age of 80, he said that my body is like an old cart. If you see an old cart, it makes some noises, sounds, creak, and so forth. The wheels are not, rolling straight. They are very, crooked. They are going crooked way, and all the nuts and wooden and iron parts of the cart are not functioning well. So my body is something like that. Buddha had only all these cart and chariot to show, uh, compare his life into. If the Buddha were today, he could say, he could compare his body into, Lamborghini, super, jets, and electronic trains and bullet trains and all the sophisticated technological innovations. This is the reality. So when we understand the Four Noble Truths, of course you need to see it from the text, but take it in your own way and compare it to your mind and body. That's the thing Buddha expected from us. That's what Venerable Sariputta was trying to deliver in Saccavibhanga Sutta. So as I promised, I do not want to go further in the discussion. So I encourage you to read it again, and I know that sometimes I don't give you enough time to discuss in this class, but I know that you have so many things to share with some discourses. You could write to me like some of